John is a lawyer out in California. He is a trial lawyer. Now, I actually met John and his wife, Lori, who is also a lawyer, over a year ago through a friend of mine named Jane, who is part of an organization called Ratio Christi. Now, John is also a part of that organization. Now, John is also an accomplished author, having written 5 books, and 2 of them are More Than a Prophet, The Identity of Jesus from the Bible, Quran, and Early Sources, as well as In Defense of the Gospels, The Case for Reliability. John and his wife also lend their skills as lawyers to the Alliance Defending Freedom, which is a nonprofit organization that helps out those in cases involving religious liberty and things like that. I will also list that organization's information in the description box below. Okay, let's get into this interview. Now, when it comes to Roe versus Wade, which of course, as you know, is the abortion case, there are some that believe that it is unconstitutional. Regardless if you are for or against abortion, as a lawyer, do you believe the ruling was unconstitutional?
Did Roe versus Wade follow the Constitution? Definitely not. Definitely not. Now, if you go back into the late 60s, California had a therapeutic abortion law where you could essentially come to California, get an abortion for any reason or no reason. And so literally in Texas, they would have plane rides where they would send pregnant women here to get their abortions. Well, then Norma McCorvey, who was the Jane Roe of Roe versus Wade, back in late 1960s, 1970, was pregnant with her 3rd child. She lived in Texas. She claimed that she had been raped, which was a lie, but she thought because she claims rape, that would be an exception. Well, it wasn't an exception in Texas. The only exception to no abortions was if the woman's life was in danger. So there was a leftist feminist attorney, Sarah Weddington, who wanted to find a case just like this. She took that case. And Roe was Norma McCorvey. Wade was the district attorney for Dallas County, Texas. And they brought before the court there in Texas as to whether or not the Texas abortion laws were constitutional, and the court there ruled they were not. That immediately was appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and from 1971 to 73, they were kicking it back and forth, and finally, it was a 7-2 decision. Harry Blackmun, a Nixon appointee, by the way, rendered the majority opinion with dissent by Byron White and by Justice Rehnquist. The reasoning behind this had nothing to do with the Constitution, nothing at all. They tried to find a way in the 14th Amendment to say that, well, due process, and then they went back to a case they decided a few years earlier, which was Griswold versus Connecticut, that said there's this right of privacy. That one had to do with contraception. Well, this right of privacy, the majority determined applied also to the woman's decision whether or not to abort her unborn baby. And what Blackmun and the majority did was carve this up into 3 trimesters, of pregnancy being typically 9 months. During the first trimester, the states can do nothing to interfere with the so-called woman's right that they just discovered. That's not in the Constitution. During the second trimester, the states can regulate where abortions take place, but can't outlaw them, but can outlaw them totally during the 3rd trimester. But the companion case of Roe versus Wade, which was Doe versus Bolton, said if the woman's health is at risk, even during the 3rd trimester, that woman can get an abortion. So in essence, it became abortion on demand right up to the moment of delivering a live child. And that, in essence, has been the law of the land since 1973. Now, the Casey decision in 1995, I believe it was, reaffirmed Roe versus Wade, but it took away that trimester idea and went to the question of viability. What's viability? Well, by definition, it's when an unborn baby can live outside of the womb. The problem is this: back in 73, when Roe versus Wade was decided, viability was about 28 weeks after conception. Today, it can be as early as 21 weeks. Well, so is viability a test of the humanity of the unborn? No, it's a skill of medicine to save a premature baby. So what happens if we build artificial wombs that can save the life of an unborn baby at 16 or 17 weeks? So you see, even this idea of viability, it's just an artificial construct, because this is what we know. An unborn baby from the moment of conception is a human being. It's not animal, mineral, or vegetable. It's human, and it's alive. It's a being. It's a growing human being, and unless you intervene, this will become you, me, or someone that outside of the womb that we love dearly as a child, as a spouse, as a parent, as a grandparent. That's Roe versus Wade. So Roe versus Wade was totally made up law, and it's been challenged so many times. In fact, during the Casey case, there were probably enough votes in to overturn it, and Anthony Kennedy changed his mind and kept Roe versus Wade intact.
Now, Roe versus Wade was brought back to a vote. Would abortion just be pushed to the states to decide?
That's a great question, Brittany. It's unclear because if Roe versus Wade is stricken, depends on how they strike it. If they decide, and Harry Blackman made it clear, in fact, I can even read his quote where he says that if the unborn baby, if the fetus is a person under the 14th Amendment, then the game's over. Then no abortion should be allowed. But he decides it's not a person. And then he goes on and says, we're not sure when this unborn baby becomes a person. And then they go on, it's when I say it is, it's at viability. So you see how all that's made up. But if the Supreme Court says the unborn baby is a person and is subject to 14th Amendment protections of due process, then that essentially would end abortion at the federal level. However, what most people think is that it'll actually be sent back to the states. And in our state of California, abortion is not going to go away for a long, long time because we have such a left-leaning populace and legislature, so that unless there's a constitutional amendment giving the right to life to the unborn, I don't see reversing Roe versus Wade as actually creating or outlawing abortion across the U.S. It'll probably go back to the way it was pre-Roe versus Wade, in which like 30-some states had their own laws on whether or not you could terminate a pregnancy.
You know, for a party who essentially preaches that they are the champion of science, you would think that basic biology would be in the books. Now, I'm no scientist, but when you take an egg and a sperm and you put it together, it creates a human life. It's still a human, number one, but it's a human at a different stage in life, just like you have those who are at a teenager stage. I would think that that would be the same case for this.
People have figured that out when it comes to things like endangered species. What would happen to you if you went to a bald eagle's nest and picked up one of the eggs? You could say, well, this is not an eagle, this is an egg. You go to federal prison if you did something with that egg because they recognize that is a growing eagle and is protected. Why don't we afford the same protection to unborn human beings? It makes no sense at all. The most vulnerable among us, babies and unborn babies, and yet there are so many that don't want to afford any protection to these unborn human beings that can feel pain in the womb, that have brain waves in the womb, that have heartbeat in the womb, they have their fingerprints, they have their DNA, it's separate from the parents. These are human beings, and they're just waiting to meet the world. And it's unfortunate that one of the most dangerous places today for the unborn is inside the womb because mothers have the right. So it's interesting is in some jurisdictions like California, a pregnant woman who, let's say, is killed in a homicide, it's a double homicide because they consider the unborn human being to be a person for the purposes of criminal statutes. But if that same unborn baby is killed in a brutal fashion by a doctor who's licensed with the consent of the woman, it's called abortion and it's legal. Someone explain how that works. You can kill the unborn, be charged with double homicide if the mother dies, but if the unborn baby is killed in an abortion mill, it's different.
And I know that we have those that say, my body, my choice, but it reminds me of this meme that when I saw a pregnant woman like outline her body and then inside of her belly was a baby, and the arrow pointed to the lady and it said, my body. And then the other arrow pointed to the baby, not my body. I was like, basic common sense. It's 2020. You would think that we would have grasped common sense by now. Apparently not, but yeah.
You're not going to see it in popular media today. So I commend you for what you're doing, Brittany. We need to hear both sides so we can weigh these things. And I, as a Christian, want to weigh things through the lens of Scripture. And I hope that people recognize that without God, we're in deep trouble. So we need to realize, why are we even here in the first place? And that's why, what does our Constitution or our Declaration of Independence say? We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The right to life doesn't come from government, it comes from God.
Now, as a Christian first and then a lawyer, there could be some that could say that you won't be able to be unbiased and you actually will have a bias because of your Christianity. What would you say to this?
Everything I've said up until the end has to do with law, logic, and precedent. And so we're talking biology here and fetology. We're not really talking about biblical positions on that. Now, most people who identify as trusting the Bible or as Christians would probably go beyond this, but in our very founding documents, the birth certificate of America is a Declaration of Independence. We're endowed by who? Government? No, endowed by God. So I only invoke God at the end, but during the rest of this, I'm only commenting on, do we find the right to abortion in the Constitution? Not at all. Not at all. It was a made-up law to satisfy the cries at the moment. So I'd make the same argument whether I was talking to a Christian group, a secular group, or a mixed group, because this is rooted in logic, it's rooted in law, rooted in precedent, and common sense. And if you want to throw into the hopper, yeah, there is a God, I'm happy to do that as well.
Well, John, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and speak with me. I learned a lot, and I definitely know our viewers did as well. So do you have any thoughts on any questions that were raised in this video? Please let me know in the comment section below. As always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and definitely subscribe. I appreciate your subscriptions. Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can be notified each time that I upload a video to this channel. And lastly, make sure to follow me on social media, especially Instagram. It's just @BrittanyValadez, and I will list all my other social media accounts in the description box below. Until next time, I'm Brittany Valadez for BravelyDaily.com. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.